Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're doing a top 10. Topic of this top 10, probably one of the most heated debates in wrestling circles, and that's promos. This, in my opinion, is the 10 best wrestling promos of all time. Now, that's not to say that you may have a different opinion. Some people, different promos affect them differently. Some people they strike an emotional accord with. Sometimes what the person is saying resonates with you more. This is my personal opinion. Feel free to put yours in the comments. With that being said, let's jump right in with number 10, the Steiner Math promo. If you haven't seen the Steiner Math promo, it's probably one of the most fun, interesting, funny things that's ever happened in pro wrestling. In my opinion, it's one of the best things that happened in TNA wrestling's history. This is Scott Steiner at his unhinged best, and him figuring out how to add things up to what chance anyone has against him. This is just an amazing promo. I defy you watching this and not at least chuckling. I absolutely love this promo. That's why it's on my list here. I'll go from that on number 9. I call it the Ric Flair Fire Me promo. It's from Ric Flair's return in WCW when he had been on the outs with the company over no-showing an event to go watch his son Reed wrestle. So he was brought back at the introduction of a new Four Horsemen, this being the last iteration with him, Malenko, Benoit, and Mongo, with Arn Anderson as the de facto manager. This promo has so much passion, so much believability, so much reality bending, breaking what's real and what's a wrestling trope. This is Ric Flair fired up and just going off. And the reason I call it the Fire Me promo is because during the promo, he starts just firing off at Bischoff. Fire me, Bischoff. I'm already fired. Fire me. I'm already fired. And it's Ric Flair. And it's just one of the great talkers of all time, going out there and being as passionate as anything he's ever put out. This is really great. I absolutely love this moment. I'll go from that on number 8. Talk about passion. The Paul Heyman promo from One Night Stand. Being an ECW fan, seeing One Night Stand was a love letter to the promotion. And seeing Paul Heyman come out there and cut this promo where he talks about JBL and the only reason he was champion is because Triple H doesn't work Tuesdays. Talking about Eric Bischoff saying this isn't Paul Heyman with his tail tucked between his legs at a WCW reunion. Referencing Rob Van Dam as to why his eyes are watering up because he was in the back with him partaking. This is just phenomenal. From probably one of the top 2 or 3 greatest talkers in the history of wrestling, in a very, very short list, he definitely goes on the Mount Rushmore. And it can be argued he's, if not the best manager of all time, one of the 2 or 3 best managers of all time. This was just fantastic. Another great moment in what was basically the last great hurrah for ECW. I absolutely love this. And being an ECW guy, you could see why. I'll go from that on number 7. This is what a lot of people refer to as a salmon jacket promo, and that's Mark Henry faking his retirement. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I've always thought Mark Henry was cool. I liked Mark Henry. I liked the different versions of him. The Hall of Pain version's my favorite and probably most everybody's favorite. But I did like the sexual chocolate stuff. I thought he was fun there. I even liked him as Muscle in the Nation of Domination. Going into this, I did not know that Mark Henry had this in him. He was never known as someone that was a great promo guy, a great presence, a good in-ring worker, not a great promo guy. And the way he had you tug at your heartstrings here, believing that he was really going to retire, only to flip it to attack John Cena, this was just fantastic. This is a masterclass on playing to the crowd and sucking them in, and then as soon as you get them sucked in, you change directions and totally change perception of what's going to happen. What a great promo. I love Mark Henry. He's just amazing. I don't think he gets as much flowers as he possibly should. I think he's kind of overlooked in his generation. One of the big legends of his time, in my opinion. Like I said, I've always liked Mark Henry. I thought this was really fun. Now going from that on number 6. Our first repeat offender from the 1992 Royal Rumble, the infamous Ric Flair with a tear in my eye promo. And this was great. This is Ric Flair winning the WWF Championship, coming to the back and doing a promo, blood still on him, sweaty, disheveled. And much like I said in his previous promo, he put so much into this. There was so much passion here. Him saying the words would resonate to this day, over 30 years later, with a tear in my eye. This is the greatest night of my life. And I know that's not even a Ric Flair impression, but that's what he said. It's still better than the one on the Iron Claw, so you gotta give me that. Just a fantastic moment at what a lot of people still consider the best Royal Rumble match of all time. I mean, that thing was studded with stars all the way throughout. One of the great talkers in the history, again, much like I said with Paul Heyman, if there was a short list, Ric Flair is probably up towards the top of it. Fantastic moment, fantastic match, one of the greats of all time. I'll go from that our number 5. I keep talking about emotion, and this one made me question things when I first heard it, and that's the Cactus Jack K-Dewey promo. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. Cactus Jack, Mick Foley's promo work in ECW, I would put that up with anybody's promos anywhere at any time, and it's still going to be as good, if not better, than anybody else's. And this specifically, because here we have Cactus Jack, one of the heroes of the ECW fan base, one of the guys that's absolutely loved all through pro wrestling, and he shows up for a match, and being the smart fans, ECW is known to have smart fans, not IQ-wise, but smart to the business-wise. One of the smart fans had a sign that said, K-Dewey. Now, you may or may not be familiar, but Dewey is Mick's son. At the time, I think he was only 3 years old. He may have been a little bit younger. I don't remember the exact age. After that, this is what became the catalyst to Mick turning heel and being the anti-hardcore guy. And this is where I'm going to get into what I was talking about at the very beginning of this number. Him calling the fans out for having a sign saying K-Dewey about a little kid, a sweet little boy, his son, and how far beyond the realm of acceptability that was. That made a person like myself question, are the fans in the wrong here? Are we wrong? Because let's be honest, for those of us that were around at the time, whether it be ECW, WCW at the NWO, or the Attitude Era in WWE, we all had signs, chants, other things that could be perceived as very detrimental and very hurtful. And did the fans go over the line here? Did we cross a line that shouldn't be crossed? Bringing up someone's kid, a young kid, and saying that they should be caned? And I know it wasn't done as like they really wanted him to be caned. It's just the delivery of Cactus Jack, Mick Foley, that makes you feel that, and makes you feel that pain that he felt seeing that sign, which, if I remember correctly, he wrote in his book, was an actual pain that he felt. He was actually disappointed in that. Here's one of our favorite wrestlers, and we've hurt him. Such an emotional tug at the heartstrings. That's why it's this high on my list. Going from that, our number 4. One of the most quoted and one of the most influential promos of all time, Dusty Rhodes, Hard Times. Look, we all know this promo. We've all seen this promo. We've all heard this promo. We've all heard Dusty say, hard times is going to a job you work for 25 years and they give you a watch and kick you out on your ass because a computer could do your job better. Hard times is a textile plant shutting down. It's so iconic. This is American Dream, and this is Dusty Rhodes in his most evangelical preacher mode, and I mean that in a very good way. He had a way to reach out and touch the fans, and he even puts his hand up to touch your hand on the screen. It was a lot like a preacher would, where he could touch you and feel your soul, and you feel him, and you resonate with what he says. Dusty was speaking right to his fan base. He was speaking to the guy that does work at the textile plant that's shutting down. He was speaking to the coal miners. He was speaking to the pizza delivery guy. He was speaking to anybody that was struggling and having hard times making their rent. He was speaking to anybody that was having personal hard time. And you felt it. You felt his empathy. You felt that emotion with him. Like I said on a lot of these, that emotion came through. This is why Dusty Rhodes connected with his fans so heavily. This is why he's so beloved. And you can see it. He's passed it on to both of his children that wrestle, Dustin and Cody, just my opinion. But this was just amazing. I mean, it's Dusty Rhodes. What can you say? One of the greats of all time. Going from that, our number 3. Keeping with the emotional, and I'm going to try to stay unemotional in this because this is one of the promos that affects me so heavily. I can't watch it without tearing up. And that's the Paul Heyman promo on Vince McMahon leading into the Survivor Series, where it's the Alliance versus the WWE. And Paul just gets to say everything he feels that Vince McMahon did wrong. He talks about how he took Attitude and he stole everything that Paul created. And much like I said, being the ECW fan, this resonated so hard with me because it's true. It's absolutely true. Everything that the Attitude Era had, and I'm not saying the Attitude Era was bad in any stretch of the way, anything that WCW did, there's a good portion of that they directly stole from ECW. The push to more reality. Characters like Stone Cold Steve Austin. That wouldn't have happened without ECW and the way ECW was being portrayed. Him talking about the different promotions that Vince put out of business, it's just amazing. It all comes to a crescendo where he points to Taz, who's in the commentary booth at this time. And he goes, you have Taz. Taz was a killer. He was a killing machine, and you've made him a commentator. Which Taz gets up and does his thing. But that just got so good. And I mentioned it before talking about Paul on this list. He has a way with words that hardly anybody in the world has. A charisma and a way he delivers it that he just could go to places where no one else can. I highly recommend searching out this promo if you've never seen it. To me, it's everything that you want in a promo. Reality, conviction, believability, and it sells the event that's coming up. I just love this promo. Going from that, our number 2. Probably one of the most important promos in professional wrestling history, and at least one of the most important promos in the last 15 years. That's the CM Punk pipe bomb. I remember when this happened and feeling like the whole wrestling world changed in that moment. It went from one thing to another with just a guy sitting cross-legged on a ramp, whether it be him breaking the fourth wall and saying hello to Colt Cabana, threatening to leave to go to New Japan or Ring of Honor. This was just stellar. It was amazing. So much has been said about the pipe bomb. So much will continue to be said about the pipe bomb. It elevated CM Punk from being a fan favorite to one of the best in the world, which he always was. This is what made him so special, and this is why he's still special. Just a great promo, hence why it's up so high. Now, before we get to our number 1, I do a thing here on my top 10s called the best of the rest, and it's basically things that were considered but didn't quite make it to the list. First up, staying with our friend CM Punk, The First Dance. For 7 years, the biggest rumor, the biggest talk in wrestling is, when is CM Punk coming back? Is CM Punk going to come back? Will he ever come back? And there were so many moments where it felt like, okay, we're about to get him back. He's about to come back. It's time. And then it was taken away. And then finally, we get the show, and it's called The First Dance. And it's in Chicago. And without even saying his name, they let the fans know this is going to be special. You need to tune into this because something really big is going to happen here. And up until the moment that Cult of Personality hit, which is to start the show, which I thought was absolutely the right idea. No reason to wait till the end of the show. Up until that moment, even if you were 99.9% sure what was going to happen happened, you weren't 100% sure. That moment comes in those 7 years of waiting for CM Punk to come back to wrestling, all melt away. I've talked about emotion a lot on this list, and just go back and watch this. Watch that famous shot of the guy crying in the crowd. There's a reaction video with Ali Davis from Wrestle Talk, and he's crying. This is a guy that watches almost every wrestling event there is in the world, and he's moved to tears. He sits down, explains why he was left, apologizes to the fans, and lays the groundwork for why he's back. Just an amazing moment, and love or hate him, and I know he's very polarizing. He's got his detractors, he's got his lovers. I'm in the corner of someone that loves CM Punk. This was just an amazing moment. Probably, in my opinion, one of the best moments in AEW history up until this point. Now, last but not least on the best of the rest, Raven's promo leading into Barely Leap. And this was, I think about a 7 or 8 minute promo, and it's just Raven talking. And Raven in ECW, I know, my fandom is very much showing. Raven in ECW was so different and so special, and this was everything that made him special in one. He talked about his upbringing, he talked about his life, he talked about Stevie Richards being the guy that was his flunky and now is potentially going to challenge him. He talked about Terry Funk and how Terry Funk reminded him of his father, and much like he disappointed his father, he wants to disappoint Terry Funk, which, wow, what a statement that is. And just the pain, the inflection, the way that Raven delivered it, everything about the Raven character can be felt in that pro. Everything that made that character special. Everything that made that such a touchstone for people of my generation, whether you watched him on ECW, WCW, everything that gravitated you to Raven was in this promo. Just a great promo and a great way to hype up what was bound to be a great main event. And I didn't even mention him talking about the Sandman in it. One of his all-time feuds. Fantastic promo in my opinion. That's why it was considered but didn't quite make the list. Now before I get to my number one, if you think I put a promo too high, put one too low, left one off the list that you think should be there, let me know in the comments. While you're there, smash that like button, share the video, subscribe if you haven't. If you see where it says join, that's how you become a channel member. Becoming a channel member would definitely help me out. I have a personal goal of trying to get to 1,500 subscribers by WrestleMania, which is a little bit over a month away. At this point, I'm sitting right around 1,400. So if you could help, if you're not a subscriber, please hit subscribe. I'd love to make that goal. With all that being said, my opinion of the number one promo of all time from the King of the Ring, 1996, Austin 316 says, "I just whipped your ass." The Austin 316 promo, much like I said with the pipe bomb, much like I said with some of these other promos, was such a game changer. And it may not have been felt right away. It may not have changed it exactly how the history says, where the next night everybody was wearing Austin 316 shirt. It was a little more gradual than the stories tell you. However, you could trace back to the hottest story in the history of wrestling, the biggest angle in the history of wrestling, the biggest star in the history of wrestling, all genesis at this promo. Yes, Austin was a star before this. Yes, he would have got there either way. But this off-the-cuff promo with him just basically going off of Jake the Snake Roberts, who at the time was saying that he was a religious man, and taking from John 3:16 from the Bible, saying you take your Psalms, you take your John 3:16s, Austin 3:16 says, "I just whooped your ass." And that was a genesis. That was a spark that lit the fire that became Stone Cold Steve Austin and the Attitude Era. This is one of the reasons that era in wrestling is looked at so fondly, because this happened, and this was just amazing. In my opinion, not only one of the best promos in pro wrestling, arguably the most important promo in the history of pro wrestling. That's why it's my number one. And as I said before, you may or may not agree with me. I'd love to hear your opinion. Throw it down here in the comments. Let me know who you think or what you think the biggest promo or best promo of all time is. Put it down here in the comments. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and this has been another Heel Heat Top 10.